I think stablecoins could weaken the U.S. sort of financial superpower that it has, its use of the dollar as a weapon. Because stablecoins, they are issued by private companies, and they don't go through the banking system. Banks are very important in helping the United States impose sanctions and use its financial system and its currency as a weapon. But anyway, I do think there's another interesting problem about stable coins because of the stable coins all over the world that will undermine their monetary sovereignty. So I think that's a big danger. Well, this is the argument that the stablecoin people make, the crypto industry. They have been saying, and they say dollar stable coins, they'll be spread all over the world. And of course, so more people will be using dollars. This must be good. And, people in Congress, I mean, you watch them at these hearings and, yes, we're very concerned about losing dollar dominance. So that stable coins are going to help. I think this is a really, frankly, a dumb way of thinking about it. The dollar will remain dominant for many other reasons. It's because of the depth and breadth and liquidity of U.S. financial markets. That factor is going to remain a factor for, there's simply no other currency that has those features. Not that the U.S. is perfect. Again, stable coins, I don't think are going to make much difference as far as that goes, one way or the other. They might, at the margin, they might make some difference, partly because they may help, demand for U.S. Treasury securities, because stable coins have to be backed by really solid assets like U.S. Treasury securities. So they may help a little. I think the Treasury's ability to issue securities is really going to depend on the creditworthiness of the United States, as it always has. And the Treasury will always be able to issue Treasury bills and Treasury bonds. The question is, at what interest rate? And if people are worried about inflation in the United States, and if they're worried about the United States issuing too much debt, which I think they ought to be worried. I mean, we're running deficits at 7% of GDP, even though we have a strong economy. That's a big deficit. So that will mean that interest rates, people will buy Treasury securities, but they may pay very high interest rates for them. So I think that's the factor that is going to affect the issuance of Treasury securities. Stable coins may help a little bit, keep interest rates a little bit lower than they would otherwise be, but it's not going to mean that the U.S. can issue Treasury securities cheaply. If people see that the U.S. is going too deeply into debt, and if they see inflation is really rising, they're going to demand high interest rates. They would be crazy not to. So I don't think stable coins are going to solve Trump's problems. I think stablecoins could weaken the U.S. sort of financial superpower that it has, its use of the dollar as a weapon. Because stablecoins are, they're issued by private companies. They don't go through the banking system. They're bearer instruments. Whoever has control of a stablecoin is believed, you assume that they own it, which is like cash. Now, cash is a bearer instrument. The bearer of the cash is the owner, and cash is used for illicit transactions. When sort of the movie villains, if they're going to conduct some big illegal transaction overseas, they carry big suitcases full of $100 bills, and then they open it up, and the other bad guy who's transacting with them looks at the money, and so cash is a bearer instrument, and stable coins have some of the same qualities as cash. They are issued by private companies, and they don't go through the banking system. Banks are very important in helping the United States impose sanctions and use its financial system and its currency as a weapon. bank, they have huge compliance departments that that monitor all big transactions coming through to make sure that there isn't some money laundering or sanctions evasion or some other illicit finance. And stable coins are a way of kind of getting around that. But I think that the stable coins, although I don't think they'll affect dollar dominance, the dollar will remain the dominant currency in international commerce. And the US will have a lot of power as a result of that. But stable coins could make it much easier for bad guys, people who want to transact for various illicit purposes and evade sanctions. But I do think it could hurt the U.S. ability to impose sanctions. That might be a good thing. But anyway, if you're thinking as an American, do I want my country to have more power? I think stable coins are a big problem. But anyway, I do think there's another interesting problem about stable coins if they're widely issued around the world and people use them. What I would worry about, another thing besides sanctions evasion, is that if people around the world use if they like dollar stable coins, particularly in countries where there isn't good, trusted economic policy making. Now, I'm not referring to Korea here because I think again you have an extremely competent central bank. I've been there. I've interviewed people at your central bank in past years, and I don't think this is a problem for Korea, but I think it's a problem for a lot of countries. Let's say in Latin America, Africa, in the developing world, where people are concerned about dictators taking away their property. Or inflation or irresponsible economic policy, and they want to, so they want to hold dollars, and stable coins will be a way for them to do that. I think a real reason to worry about that is that that will make it very difficult for those countries to control their economies, to run monetary policy, because if people are using stable coins, to go to the store to buy things, then their central banks don't have control over that. They have control over their own currency, but they don't have control over the stable coins that people may be using.
국내에서 소비를 하더라도 달러를 기준으로 해서 소비를 하는 거잖아요. 한거래에 많이 침투할수록 원화의 지위는 약해지는 겁니다.
So that will undermine their monetary sovereignty. Economists call this currency substitution, where another currency is used for the local currency. And I don't think this is in anybody's interest for this to happen. I don't think it's clearly not in the interest of countries in Africa or Latin America. And I don't think it's in America's interest either. I don't think Americans should want to hurt the economic policies of friendly countries. So I think this is another big worry with stable coins.
디지털화되고 있는 우리의 세계에서 앞으로 화폐가 어떤 형태로 진화하고 발전할지 궁금합니다.
Okay, well, great question. I think, and I kind of hope that as technology improves the ability of people and companies to send money to each other and around the world, that the way things will move is to what's called tokenized deposits. And these are bank deposits like we're all familiar with now, but they would have some of the features that cryptocurrencies have. They wouldn't be like Bitcoin. They wouldn't be like stable coins. They'd be deposits in banks, but they would have some of the technological features that could improve the payment system for everybody. So, for example, one of the most interesting innovations that the cryptocurrency people have initiated is what's called smart contracts, where this software in cryptocurrencies, it's programmed. So if you make a payment, the payment goes through only if some condition is met. So the simplest example is if you get delivery of the product that you're paying for, and the software can be programmed to know that delivery has been made, then the transaction automatically occurs. It doesn't occur unless that condition is met. This is a really could be a very powerful technological innovation for improving payments in a lot of ways. And with tokenized deposits, bank deposits, they could be programmed so that when you pay using your bank, these kinds of technological innovative features could be put into the transaction.
언제까지 써야 된다, 뭐 기한이나 금액, 그다음에 이제 얼마 이상을 쓰면 뭐 얼마가 환급된다라든지 다양한 프로그래밍을 쉽게 구현을 할 수 있는 화폐이기 때문에.
You won't need to use it, if you go buy a cup of coffee. You don't need to have smart contracts for very simple transactions. You just pay with your credit card or with a cash or any other, old-fashioned, means of payment. But for some types of transactions, particularly that big corporations use, big banks, they could benefit from having some of these technological innovations. They use the banking system. They go through central banks, so the money is trusted. It has a very important feature. It's called the singleness of money. $1 is exactly $1. 1 Korean won is exactly 1 Korean won. With stable coins, you don't get that. If you go on any look at the prices of cryptocurrencies, you see that their prices fluctuate. Even stable coins are not exactly 1-to-1. Sometimes they lose quite a bit of value when people worry about the soundness of the stablecoin company. But tokenized deposits, because they would go through, they'd be based in a central bank. They have that singleness of money. I think that this is what is being promoted by the Bank for International Settlements, which is the big institution in Basel, Switzerland.
Tokenization of deposits and central bank money means that all balance sheet updates in a payment using correspondent banks can be executed in one go as an atomic transaction. With careful design, it will be possible to improve the efficiency of our current system while preserving the integrity of the existing system.
They've produced some fantastic work on why tokenized deposits should be the kind of money that's used in the future. And, Donald Trump could screw all this up. Don't get me wrong. But I think, based on the merits, this is where the money system of the future will go. Stable coins will play some role. They already are. But hopefully they will push banks to move more to tokenized deposits. I think and they're doing that. Because the CBDCs are different from tokenized deposits. I mean, tokenized deposits are, it's money issued by banks. If you deposit money in a bank, that money, it's private money. It's just a liability of the bank to you. And tokenized deposits would be the same thing. But banks are regulated, and they have to, clear and settle their transactions through a central bank. So it's, of course, they're closely linked to central banks. But a CBDC is issued by a central bank. It's public money. It's like cash, but except it's digital. So there's a difference. So I think there are problems with CBDCs. For my book, for King Dollar, one of the things I did was I went to the Bahamas, which is the first country to issue a CBDC. It was hard work, going to the Bahamas, but somebody has to do it. They issued the first CBDC in 2020, but even before China. And I went there expecting to be able to use it's called the Sand Dollar, by the way. It's a very, very charming name. And I went there thinking, I will put this into my phone and I will be lying on the beach, ordering a nice tropical drink, and I will pay with my, with my sand. But it turns out nobody wants to accept these things. They want cash or they want credit cards. They don't understand what's the use of this thing that's issued by the government, and they're a little worried about, the government issued it. Well, maybe they're spying on me then. So I couldn't. It was very difficult for me to find any place that would accept my sand dollars. And the same problem is happening in China. China, has they have a major initiative to launch a CBDC. The ECNY, the EUan, but very few people use it. Even some people are even they get their salaries in ECNY, and then they convert it to money on Alibaba or Tencent, the big fintech companies. CBDCs at Nigeria has had the same problem. There are only a few countries that have actually issued CBDCs so far, but people don't particularly want to use them. They don't find it very useful. They don't find it, and they're maybe a little scared of the government spying on them. There are all kinds of ways I can use my cell phone and point it at a QR code and pay for something already. There's lots of new technologically interesting ways of paying. It doesn't have to be central bank money, but tokenized deposits, those are different. And those may have some very interesting features like smart contracts. This is all off in the future now, but maybe those would make my payment life easier. I think the dollar weapon will remain a very potent weapon for a long time. I see terrible problems with the United States, but the U.S. currency is the only currency that has those features. That will remain. I'm been spending the past 5 or 6 years, really studying how the dollar system works, and I've learned a lot in the course of doing that. And as you can see, I've developed some pretty strong opinions. And I wish I weren't right, but I think I'm right. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for having me on. Okay, thank you.